Welcome to Rsays, where my mom turned a card shop owner's sarcastic tell it to the news challenge into a full investigative report that shut down their entire business. So this story happened back in the late 90s, but I just found the actual VHS tape of the news report in my mom's old stuff. And I had to share this legendary tale of malicious compliance with you guys. My mother was, how do I put this? She was the kind of woman who never did anything halfway. Her favorite saying was, "Why say bleed when you can say hemorrhage?" Because if she was going to do something, she was going all the way with it. Like, we couldn't even ask for help with homework because you'd end up staying awake until 3 a.m. on a school night while she helped you create this magnum opus project. Then you'd show up to school with this incredible piece of work while everyone else had clearly phoned it in, and somehow they'd all still get the same A you did. It was frustrating, but also kind of amazing. Mom rarely got angry, like genuinely angry. But if you managed to activate her righteous indignation mode, dude, the repercussions would be absolutely legendary. And this card shop owner? She had no idea what she was about to unleash. It all started when I was snooping around my brother's room, because that's what little brothers do, right? Meanness, and I found this ornate fantasy-style dagger hidden in his stuff. This wasn't some plastic toy or whatever. This thing was sharp, real metal, looked like something straight out of a medieval movie. My brother was only 11 at the time, so seeing this thing immediately set off alarm bells in my head. Of course, that's exactly when my mom walked up behind me and caught me red-handed with the weapon. Now, I had two choices: take the heat for going through my brother's stuff, or do what any self-respecting little brother would do and throw him completely under the bus. Guess which option I chose? My brother wasn't home at the time, so Mom went into full investigation mode. She tore through his entire room and found more knives. Not just one or two, multiple weapons that had no business being in an 11-year-old's bedroom. She laid them all out on the kitchen table like some kind of evidence display, and I could see her psyching herself up for the absolute hell she was about to bring down on my brother. By the time my brother got home, he walked through the front door and immediately saw Mom sitting at the table with all his secret knives spread out in front of her. The kid went white as a sheet. Like, all the color just drained from his face in real time. You know that look when someone realizes they're completely screwed? That was my brother in that moment. Mom didn't waste any time. "Where did you get these?" she asked, and her voice had that scary, calm tone that meant someone was about to get destroyed. Now, this was the late 90s. And my brother was really into Magic the Gathering cards. There was this card shop just down the street from our house where he'd go to buy cards and hang out with other players. He'd spent tons of money there buying boxes and boxes of cards, so the owners knew him pretty well. They definitely knew he was way too young to be buying weapons. But apparently they'd sold him these knives anyway. No questions asked, no ID check, nothing. When my brother confessed where he'd gotten them, I watched my mom's jaw literally drop. And then, moments later, we were all piling into the car and driving straight to that shop. I remember the tension in the car being insane. Mom was silent, which was somehow worse than if she'd been yelling. My brother looked like he was going to throw up. And I was just along for the ride, watching what I knew was about to be an epic confrontation. The confrontation begins. Mom dragged my brother into that card shop like she was on a mission from God. She walked straight up to the counter and slammed those knives down in front of the woman who owned the place. The sound of metal hitting the counter echoed through the whole store, and every customer in there turned to look at us. "You sold these to him," Mom said, pointing at my brother, who was trying to disappear into the floor. The shop owner looked at the knives, looked at my brother, then looked back at my mom with this totally unbothered expression. "Yeah, so what?" I swear I felt the temperature in the room drop about 10 degrees. My mom's voice got even calmer, which was terrifying if you knew her. "He is not 18, and he shouldn't have access to these weapons. You need to tell your employees to check IDs before they sell weapons to minors." Now, here's where the shop owner could have just apologized, maybe claimed it was a mistake, and this whole thing could have ended right there, but no. This woman decided to double down in the worst possible way. She actually laughed. Like, genuinely laughed at my mom's concern. "It's a joke. It's humor. Don't you get it?" "Oh, no. Oh, lady, you have no idea what you just did." I could see something shift in my mom's expression, and I knew this woman had just made the worst mistake of her business-owning life. You see, the problem wasn't that it was an accident or a misunderstanding anymore. The problem was her. My mom took a deep breath and tried one more time to be reasonable. I am his mother, and I don't think it's funny that you're selling weapons to children. If you won't follow the law, at the very least, I need you to stop selling weapons to my son specifically. The shop owner crossed her arms and got this smug look on her face that I'll never forget. I'll do whatever I want. If you don't like it, tell the news. The moment those words left her mouth, I knew this woman had just signed her own death warrant. She had no idea who she was talking to or the lengths my mom was willing to go for her kids. Like, why would you challenge someone with that exact phrase? It's like daring someone to call your bluff when you're not even bluffing. My mom gave her one last chance before the hammer was about to drop. Her voice was deadly quiet now. So you're saying that even without my permission, having asked you not to personally, and knowing it's illegal, you would still sell a knife to him? Of course. This is a business. Maybe raise him better if you don't like what he's doing. It was like all the air got sucked out of the room. I'm not kidding. You could have heard a pin drop. This woman had just told my mother, who was president of the PTA at 3 different schools, who was practically professional level at being a mom, who was crushing it by every conceivable standard, that she needed to raise her kids better. She had just insulted my mom to her core, questioned her parenting, and dismissed her legitimate concerns about child safety, all in one sentence. This lady had no idea what kind of nuclear bomb she'd just detonated. My mom didn't say another word. She just gathered up all the knives, looked at me and my brother, and said, "We're leaving." Even the woman behind the counter looked a little shocked that Mom was just walking out without escalating further. So was I, honestly. I expected fireworks, yelling, maybe some threats. But nothing. We all went back to the car in complete silence. My brother was probably relieved that he wasn't getting screamed at, but I could tell something bigger was brewing. Mom sat in the driver's seat for a moment, and I could almost visibly see the resolve setting in. Her whole demeanor changed, like she'd made some kind of internal decision. Then she looked at us in the rearview mirror and said, in the most determined voice I'd ever heard from her, "I guess we're going to the news then." I don't remember her saying another word for the rest of the night. But I could tell that shop owner had just made the biggest mistake of her life, the research phase. The next morning, I woke up and walked into the kitchen to find my mom surrounded by what looked like a legal war room. Papers were scattered everywhere, stuff she'd downloaded and printed off the internet, all highlighted in different colors with notes scribbled in the margins. She was on the phone explaining the story to someone at a news station, and there were emails pulled up on the computer screen. I'm pretty sure she hadn't slept at all. Like, at all. She'd been up the entire night researching laws about selling weapons to minors, building her case, and figuring out exactly how to take this woman down. When my mom set her mind to something, she didn't mess around. The first few reporters she talked to didn't really see what she saw in the story. They basically told her it wasn't newsworthy and they wouldn't pick it up. But here's the thing about my mom. Every time someone told her no, she would ask them for references to someone who might be interested. She wasn't taking no for an answer. This went on for weeks. Weeks of phone tag, leaving messages, following up with different news stations and reporters. She had this whole system going, spreadsheets of contacts, notes about who she'd talked to, follow-up schedules. It was like watching someone run a political campaign, except the campaign was about taking down one snarky card shop owner. I remember coming home from school and seeing her still at it, making calls, sending emails, researching more legal precedents. My brother was getting nervous because he thought he was going to get in even more trouble, but Mom kept reassuring him that this wasn't about punishing him anymore. This was about making sure other kids didn't end up with weapons they shouldn't have. Finally, after all those weeks of persistence, she found an investigative reporter who was actually interested in the story. This guy saw what my mom saw, that a business was knowingly and willfully breaking the law, endangering children, and being completely unapologetic about it. But here's where things got absolutely insane. The reporter suggested that the best way to prove their case was to send my brother back in undercover with a hidden camera to buy something even bigger. I know how completely ridiculous that sounds, but this was the late 90s, and apparently investigative journalism was a little different back then. They met up with my brother down the street from the card shop. This reporter had bought a spy camera and microphone from Radio Shack, like actual spy equipment you could just purchase at an electronics store. They wired my brother up with this hidden camera setup and gave him $120 to go in and buy the biggest weapon he could find. My brother was terrified, but also kind of excited. I mean, what 11-year-old wouldn't think it was cool to be part of an undercover sting operation? Even if it was against the place where he bought his magic cards. So in he goes, wired for sound and video, with a pocket full of cash and instructions to buy the most ridiculous weapon they had in stock. And this is where the story gets even more unbelievable. He came out of that store with a full-size sword. Not a dagger, not a knife. A legitimate medieval-style sword that was bigger than he was. The shop employees had jokingly told him, "Don't kill anyone with that," as he was walking out, but they never once asked to see an ID or questioned why an 11-year-old needed a sword. The whole thing was caught on hidden camera. The casual way they sold him a deadly weapon, the jokes about violence, the complete lack of any safety protocols or age verification. It was all right there on tape, exactly like my mom had said it would be. After my brother walked out with his new sword, the reporter went in to interview the shop owner. And instead of backing down or trying to explain herself, she stuck with her original position that it was all just funny and harmless. She doubled down on everything, right there on camera. Then they set up for the big confrontation. My mom and the shop owner, face to face on camera, arguing about whether it's appropriate to sell weapons to children. The interview showdown. The on-camera interview between my mom and the shop owner was absolutely legendary. I'm talking about a masterclass in how to completely destroy yourself on television while thinking you're winning the argument. The reporter set up outside the card shop and had my mom on one side, the shop owner on the other, and just let them go at it. And holy shit, did this woman dig her own grave deeper with every single word that came out of her mouth. My mom kept her cool the entire time, just asking reasonable questions and letting the shop owner respond. Do you think it's appropriate to sell deadly weapons to 11-year-old children? Are you concerned about the legal liability of selling weapons to minors? What if one of these children gets hurt or hurts someone else? And this shop owner, man, she was absolutely irate. She kept insisting that it was all just harmless fun, that parents were being too overprotective, that kids should be allowed to buy whatever they want. She was getting more and more worked up while my mom stayed calm and collected, just feeding her more rope to hang herself with. The best part, or worst part, depending on how you look at it, was when the reporter asked her directly about the hidden camera footage. They showed her the video of my brother buying that sword, and instead of being embarrassed or apologetic, she got defensive and angry. "It's just a business transaction," she kept saying. "We're not their parents. If parents don't like what their kids are buying, they should supervise them better." My mom just kept asking follow-up questions that made the woman look worse and worse. "So you're saying you have no responsibility for ensuring the safety of the children who shop here? You don't see any problem with an 11-year-old walking out of your store with a sword? What if this weapon seriously injures someone?" And every single time, the shop owner would double down with more outrageous responses. She was completely convinced that people would side with her, that she was the reasonable one in this situation. It was like watching someone voluntarily walk into a wood chipper while insisting they knew what they were doing. The reporter was loving it. He barely had to ask any questions. He just let these two women debate, and the shop owner kept making his case for him. She tied the whole story up in a neat little bow for him, providing quote after quote of her defending the practice of selling weapons to children. By the end of the interview, even I felt bad for her. She was so convinced she was right, so sure that her "it's just business" attitude would win people over. She had no idea how absolutely insane she sounded to anyone watching this. After the cameras stopped rolling, my mom didn't gloat or say, "I told you so." She just packed up her stuff and left. She'd gotten everything she needed, and now it was just a matter of waiting for the story to air. The reporter told us it would probably be a few weeks before the piece ran, and that he'd let us know when it was scheduled. He seemed pretty excited about it. Apparently, this was exactly the kind of local investigative story that could win awards. My mom spent those weeks preparing for what she knew was going to be a big moment. She cleared her schedule for the day it was supposed to air, set up the VCR to record it, and invited some friends over to watch. This was going to be her vindication, her proof that she'd been right all along. Meanwhile, my brother was getting nervous about being the star of an investigative news report. He kept asking if he was going to get in trouble, if the police were going to arrest him for buying weapons illegally. Mom kept reassuring him that he was the victim in this story, not the criminal. The night before the story was scheduled to air, I remember my mom being unusually quiet at dinner. Not nervous quiet, but focused quiet. Like she was mentally preparing for her big moment. She'd been building up to this for months, and tomorrow everyone was going to see that she'd been right about everything. None of us knew just how spectacular the fallout was going to be. The story aired on a Tuesday night, and it was everything my mom had hoped for and more. The reporter had put together this incredible piece that made the shop owner look absolutely insane, while highlighting a genuine public safety issue. The hidden camera footage was damning, the interviews were brutal, and my mom came across as a concerned parent fighting for child safety. But here's the crazy part. By the time the story aired, when the reporter went back to do a follow-up segment, the card shop was already closed. Like, permanently closed. Doors locked, signs taken down, completely out of business. Within a month of that news report airing, that entire business was gone. The reporter actually won an award for the investigative piece, and my mom's righteous indignation was finally satisfied. She had been right all along, she had proved it on television, and she had shut down a business that was endangering children. My mom recorded that news report on a VHS tape, and for years afterward, every chance she got, she would parade it around to show people her crowning achievement. Family gatherings, PTA meetings, anywhere she could find an audience. She would tell the whole story, and then we'd all have to watch the tape. It became legendary in our family, this perfect example of what happens when you mess with my mom and her kids. Eventually, the VHS tape got lost to time and the story became more legend than fact. But I just found that tape in her old stuff after she passed. And watching it again brought back all these memories of how absolutely badass my mom was when she set her mind to something. Okay, you guys. I just watched this entire story unfold, and I am living for this level of malicious compliance. Like, this shop owner literally asked for it. She literally said, "Tell it to the news," and then acted shocked when this mom actually did exactly that. Look, let me break down what happened here, because this is a masterclass in how not to handle a customer complaint. You've got a concerned parent coming to you saying, "Hey, you sold weapons to my 11-year-old, maybe don't do that anymore." And instead of just apologizing and fixing the problem, this woman decided to declare war on the wrong mom. And can we talk about the absolute audacity of telling a PTA president who's juggling 3 different schools that she needs to raise her kids better? Ma'am, this woman is literally professional level at parenting, and you're going to question her skills because she doesn't want her elementary school kid buying swords? The disrespect is astronomical. But here's what gets me. The shop owner had so many opportunities to back down. When the mom first came in, she could have apologized. When she was getting interviewed on camera, she could have shown some remorse. Even after the hidden camera footage, she could have claimed it was a mistake. But no, she doubled down every single time. The hidden camera sting operation is absolutely wild, though. I mean, sending an 11-year-old undercover with Radio Shack spy equipment to buy a sword? That sounds like something out of a movie. But apparently, that's just how investigative journalism worked in the 90s. And the fact that they actually sold him a full sword while joking about not killing anyone? That's beyond irresponsible. As someone who's worked in retail, I cannot imagine the thought process of selling a medieval weapon to a child and thinking that's just normal business. Like, at what point do you not stop and think, maybe I should ask for ID, or maybe this isn't appropriate? But the mom's persistence is what really impresses me. Weeks of phone calls, getting rejected by multiple reporters, building a case with legal research. This woman turned "Tell it to the news" into a full-scale investigation that won awards and shut down a business. That's not just malicious compliance, that's strategic warfare. And the shop owner's attitude during the TV interview? Chef's kiss. She really thought she was going to come across as the reasonable businesswoman being attacked by an overprotective parent. Instead, she came across as someone who thinks child safety is optional if it interferes with profits. The fact that the business closed before the story even finished airing tells you everything you need to know about how bad this looked. Other customers probably saw that report and noped right out of there. Who wants to shop at a place that's cavalier about selling weapons to children? Butthole ratings. The mom, 0 out of 5 buttholes. This woman is a hero. She saw a problem, tried to solve it reasonably, got disrespected, and then methodically destroyed the people who challenged her. Legendary behavior. The shop owner, 5 out of 5 buttholes. You sold weapons to children, got defensive when called out, insulted a concerned parent, and then doubled down on camera. You played yourself. The brother, 0 out of 5 buttholes. Kid was just buying magic cards and got caught up in adult drama. Plus, he became an undercover spy, which is pretty cool. The investigative reporter, 0 out of 5 buttholes. This guy saw a real story and ran with it. Won an award for exposing genuine public safety issues. So here's my question for you guys. Have you ever had someone challenge you to take it to the news or call the cops, thinking you wouldn't actually do it? What happened when you called their bluff? Let me know in the comments.